week 23 of the fantasy baseball season, and it's crunch time if you're still in it in your fantasy leagues. Most leagues are in the final four of the year or in the first round of the playoffs, depending if you play that last week of the season. But anyway, here's a few hitters I looked at off the wire this week. The first guy, Willie Castro, and the Minnesota Twins are the versatile utility man. He's been up and down this season, this Castro, but one of the big pickups this week off the wire on the season: 6 home runs, 28 RBIs, 31 stolen bases, 49 runs scored, a 258 average, and a 336 on base. So obviously, if you need some base stealing and runs scored, Willie Castro is going to bring that to fantasy owners. And I know he's batting ninth in the lineup, but it's pretty much like a double leadoff spot right now for him with the Minnesota Twins. So the last few games: September 6th at the Guardians, 0 for 2, a run, a bag. September 8th versus the Mets, 1 for 3, a run and a stolen base. September 9th versus the Mets, 3 for 4, a homer and that 1-2 run scored. And September 10th versus the Mets. So right now he's playing good baseball. The last 4 out of 6 games, he's had 2 hits or more in those games as Willie Castro, which is good to see. And like I said, if you need a utility guy or a guy who's just going to get on base, steal some bags, and get some hits, I think he's a decent ad this week here is Castro, and right now available in 79% of fantasy leagues. The next hit is Mitch Garver of the Texas Rangers. So Mitch Garver, he's filled in well for Jonah Heim over the last few weeks, and we always knew Mitch Garver was a good talent, but staying healthy was always a problem for him. But anyway, on the season, 16 home runs, 42 RBIs, 36 runs scored, a 286 average, and a 387 on base. So right now the on-base percentage is great here for Mitch Garver, no doubt about it. Available in 52% of fantasy leagues. In the last month of the season, he's really on a tear. 8 home runs, 15 RBIs, 16 runs scored, a 313 average, and a 450 on base. So right now we know catch is a weak position, but Mitch Garver has been one of the best catches over the last month of the season. So the last few games for him: September 6th versus Houston, 0 for 4. September 8th versus the A's, 1 for 4. September 9th versus the A's, 1 for 1 with a run. And September 10th versus the A's, 1 for 3 with a run. So right now, still no timetable for Jonah Heim's return. I think Mitch Garver could carve out a role regardless if he's back and not with all the injuries over there, and play some DH and catcher, even if Heim comes back sooner than later for this Texas Ranger team. So right now, he's playing good baseball as Mitch Garver. He's showing power, he's showing batting average, which is surprising, and he's definitely a hitter to add this week. The next hit is DJ Stewart of the New York Mets. So he came out of nowhere over the last couple months. He is DJ Stewart after the Mets blew it up at the trade deadline and they started calling up some of the guys on the roster. So Stewart on the season: 11 home runs, 24 RBIs, 14 runs scored, a 264 average, and a 342 on base. And Stewart, he's done damage over the last couple weeks: 5 home runs, 11 RBIs, 5 runs scored, a 269 average, and a 345 on base. So Stewart, prototypical power hit. He's going to show power. He's going to strike out a whole lot, low batting average, but he's going to have a decent on-base percentage as well. I know last week he missed a decent amount of games with the back injury, but now he's been back the last 2 games he has Stewart, and he's been playing good baseball. So the last few games for him: September 2nd versus Seattle, 2 for 5, a homer, 3 RBIs. September 3rd versus Seattle, 0 for 4. Then the 5th, 6th, and 8th, he missed the games with the back. Then September 9th, he came back in Minnesota, 1 for 4 with a homer. And September 10th at the Twins, 1 for 4 with 2 home runs. So right now, if you're looking for power and a guy's getting an everyday opportunity where he could hit a few home runs a week possibly, he's definitely a hitter I'd look to hit, and he's available right now in 89% of fantasy leagues. Next hit is Eddie Rosario of the Atlanta Braves. Eddie Rosario, it's been up and down season. Some weeks he has monster weeks, and some weeks he can't put the bat on the ball, but overall the numbers are pretty solid this season. When you're batting 7th or 8th in a lineup like Atlanta and there's no pressure, you're going to put up numbers if you got some pop like Rosario does. 21 home runs, 70 RBIs, 61 runs scored, a 265 average, and a 319 on base. So over the last month of the season, he's been on a tear: 5 home runs, 19 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 16 runs scored, a 341 average, and a 411 on base. So right now, Rosario showing pop. He's always been a good power hitter throughout his career. And like I said, when you're batting 6th, 7th, 8th in this lineup, because he switches at times here, you're going to get a lot of pitches to hit when you got hitters like Ronald Acuna, Austin Riley, Matt Olson in the lineup, even Marcell Ozuna, Albie, Sean Murphy. So this lineup's stacked, and all these guys are getting good pitches to hit, and Rosario's taking advantage of that this season. September 6th versus St. Louis, 2 for 4 run. September 7th versus the Cardinals, 3 for 4 run, 2 RBIs. September 8th versus the Pirates, 2 for 4, homer, 3 ribs, 2 runs scored. September 9th versus the Pirates, 1 for 4. And September 10th versus the Pirates, 1 for 4. So here today, a doubleheader. The Braves kick off at the Philadelphia Phillies. And that's a man boxer over there, obviously, in Philly. And it wouldn't be surprised to me if Rosario continues this hot streak and showing power. So definitely give him an ad, available in 53% of fantasy league. The next hit is Tommy Pham of the Arizona Diamondbacks. So Pham's been a nice pickup at the deadline for this Diamondback team. And now he'll go travel to his former team at the New York Mets here at Citi Field to start the week off. So Pham on the season, 15 home runs, 60 RBIs, 18 stolen bases, 46 runs scored, a 261 average, and a 328 on base. So over the last month since he got traded, 4 home runs, 19 RBIs, 16 runs scored, 5 stolen bases, a 269 average, and a 298 on base. So if you're looking for stolen bases, some pop, and the guy's just going to go out there every day and play hard. September 6th versus the Rockies, 3 for 4, 3 runs, 3 RBIs. September 7th at the Cubs, 2 for 5, 2 homers, 3 ribs. September 8th at the Cubs, 0 for 4. September 9th at the Cubs, 1 for 5, a rib. And September 10th at the Cubs, 2 for 4 with a stolen base. So with him going back to Citi Field versus former team, I think Tommy Pham's going to come up and play a big series for this Diamondback team that's trying to get into one of those wild card spots. So right now it's a 4-game set at Citi Field. Obviously very familiar with the pitching staff and the stadium over there is Tommy Pham. So right now, while he's available in tons of fantasy leagues at 75%, he's definitely a hitter I look to give an ad to this week. Here's Pham. The next hit is Austin Hayes of the Baltimore Orioles. So Austin Hayes, he's been a solid hitter over the last few seasons, and an underrated hitter, in my opinion, for this Baltimore Oriole team. And even for fantasy baseball, right now he's still available in 47% of fantasy leagues on the season. 14 home runs, 59 RBIs, 72 runs scored, 4 stolen bases, a 284 average, and a 331 on base. But over the last month of the season, he's been coasting and playing good baseball. Hayes, 4 home runs, 15 RBIs, 19 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 295 average, and a 364 on base. If you need a professional hitter and a guy's going to put the bat on ball and show some underrated pop, I think Hayes can help fantasy owners in many ways with batting average, RBIs, some home runs, and on-base percentage. And right now, like I said, he's still out there in 47% of leagues. September 5th at the Angels, 1 for 5, a run. September 6th at the Angels, 4 for 4, a homer, 4 RBIs, 3 runs scored. September 8th at the Red Sox, 1 for 4, 2 runs, a rib. September 9th at the Red Sox, 1 for 5, 2 runs. And September 10th, I know he had the golden sombrero, but it was one bad game at Boston, 0 for 4 with the 4K. So right now, if he's out there in your fantasy league, I think he can help fantasy owners. And he's got a good matchup coming up this week. Here's Austin Hayes versus one of the weakest pitching staffs in the league versus the St. Louis Cardinals, which I think he definitely could take advantage of. So right now, I could give Hayes an ad this week. The next hit is Mark Canha of the Milwaukee Brewers. So Canha's been a nice pickup at the deadline as well for this Brewer team. We know last season he was a good part of this New York Met roster, and he had some clutch moments. And now he's been playing solid baseball and getting the everyday chance here with this Brewer team. On the season, 9 home runs, 49 RBIs, 43 runs scored, 8 stolen bases, a 263 average, and a 358 on base. And over the last month, he's been on a tear. Canha, 3 home runs, 16 RBIs, 12 runs scored, a stolen base, a 346 average, and a 443 on base. So Canha's always been a decent on-base percentage guy, but now that he's bringing batting average over the last month of the season and getting on base even more for this Milwaukee Brewer team, he's definitely bringing fantasy value. And he's always a guy who'll give you a professional at-bat, works the count up there when he's at-bat, and while he's available in tons of fantasy leagues at 79%. I would give him an ad this week. September 5th at the Pirates, 1 for 4, rib. September 6th at the Pirates, 2 for 3, a rib. September 8th at the Yankees, 1 for 3. September 9th at the Yankees, 2 for 4, run and a rib. And September 10th at the Yankees, 0 for 4. So right now, they got a 4-game set versus Miami as this Milwaukee Brewer team. Canha is obviously familiar with the pitching staff, playing with the New York Mets for a season and a half is Mark Canha. So right now, in deeper leagues, he's more of an ad. I'd rather have Hayes, obviously, over him. I would give him an ad this week. The next hitter, Edward Olivares of the Kansas City Royals. Obviously, the Royals, they've been out of it since the first month of the season. And it's all about the young guys. And Olivares, he's been playing good baseball over the last few weeks. On the season, 10 home runs, 27 RBIs, 41 runs scored, 9 stolen bases, a 260 average, and a 310 on base. But over the last month, 4 home runs, 7 RBIs, 5 runs scored, a 375 average, and a 400 on base. I know it's only been a 24 at-bat span, but he's showing power. Is a Alvarez. He's getting an everyday opportunity. And the other thing, he's finally healthy for this Kansas City Royal team. So right now, if you're looking for a guy with some upside and pop this late in the season here, I think he could bring that to fantasy owners. And he's available right now, 97% of leagues. September 6th versus the White Sox, 1-for-1, a homer, 2 ribs. September 8th at the Blue Jays, 0-for-2, a rib. September 9th at the Blue Jays, 1-for-3, a homer. And September 10th at the Blue Jays, 2-for-4. So right now he's playing good baseball as Alvarez. He's getting an everyday opportunity. And the Royals, they got a pretty good matchup coming up at the White Sox. That's a pretty weak pitching staff where I think he could hit the ball. He could get a few hits in that game and possibly a home run in that series as well. So right now in deeper leagues, if you want to give him an ad, I would this week. The next hit is Nelson Velasquez of the Kansas City Royals. So the Royals here late in the season, this is what they want to see. Young players who could produce and be part of the future in the team next season. And Velasquez, they got in a trade with the Cubs near the deadline. On the season, 12 home runs, 23 RBIs, 24 runs scored, a 243 average, and a 300 on base. And over the last month, he showed big power, 8 home runs, 16 RBIs, 15 runs scored, a 231 average, and a 286 on base. So obviously, he's a prototypical power hitter where it's going to be a low batting average. He's going to strike out a lot, but also he's going to put the ball in the seats here, and he's batting 5th or 6th usually for this Royal offense. So he's definitely a hitter I give an ad to in deeper leagues as well. Available right now in 84% of leagues. September 6th versus the White Sox, 1-for-4, a homer, 2 ribs. September 8th at the Jays, 1-for-3. September 9th at the Jays, 0-for-3. And September 10th at the Jays, 0-for-1. So right now, if you're looking for some cheap power and a guy in deeper leagues or maybe a 4 outfielder league or 2 or 3 utility spots, I think Velasquez is worth the roster spot right now. And I'd give him an ad this week. And the final hit I look at is Chris Taylor of the Los Angeles Dodgers. So we know he's the huge super utility man over there, is Taylor. We know he's had some fantasy value in the past, but over the last few weeks here, he's starting to get things going. Once again, is Chris Taylor, and obviously he qualifies at second, third, short outfield for fantasy owners. So right now available still in 72% of fantasy leagues. He's a hitter I would give an ad to this week. On the year, 15 home runs, 48 RBIs, 45 runs scored, 15 stolen bases, a 233 average, and a 326 on base. But over the last month here, he's been on a tear, 3 home runs, 11 RBIs, 9 runs scored, 5 stolen bases, a 309 average, and a 433 on base. If you're looking for stolen bases, runs, and some surprising power, Chris Taylor definitely could bring that to fantasy owners. And right now, like I said, available in tons of fantasy leagues at 72%. September 7th at the Marlins, 3-for-5, a homer, 5 RBIs. September 8th at the Nats, 1-for-3, a run, 2 RBIs. September 9th at the Nats, 0-for-1. And September 10th at the Nats, 1-for-5. So right now, he's playing good baseball. He is Chris Taylor. He's a utility man that could qualify pretty much everywhere besides catcher and first base for fantasy owners. And he's on a Dodger team where he's going to get a lot of good pitches to hit, obviously, with a loaded lineup, where pitchers aren't obviously going to challenge guys like Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Smith, even the James Outman, guys like that. So right now, while Chris Taylor's been hitting well, and he's getting good pitches to hit in a stacked Dodger lineup, he's definitely a hitter I look to add this week. So that's a few hitters I look to add here in a crucial week 23 of the fantasy baseball season.